highway maintenance crew discovered a red suitcase by the roadside. Upon opening it, a grim discovery awaited them. The suitcase contained the remains of a young woman. It was later revealed that she had met an incredibly violent end. Valerie Eise hailed from the small town of New Rochelle, New York. She had 3 younger brothers, and she shared a strong bond with them. Valerie was known for her bright, cheerful, and outgoing nature, which meant she had a wide circle of friends. Valerie and her mother had a relationship akin to best friends, confiding in each other completely, with no secrets kept. The young woman was quite gifted, possessing a talent for both singing and drawing. Valerie was an aspiring tattoo master, admiring her brother who was already established in the field. They shared a dream of one day co-owning their own tattoo studio. In the meantime, however, Valerie was employed at a bookstore. In January 2018, through a dating site, 24-year-old Valerie connected with 26-year-old Javier de Silva, a native of Venezuela. He had left Venezuela in 2017, concerned for his safety, and had not completed his college education. He relocated to New York, where he found employment as a waiter in a restaurant. After a few dates, Valerie and Javier found they had a connection and began a relationship. However, their romance was brief, lasting approximately 3 months. During that time, Javier proposed they live together and even contemplated marriage. This pressure made Valerie uncomfortable, as she wasn't prepared for such a commitment at that stage. Feeling things were progressing too rapidly, Valerie suggested they separate. Her family had met Javier on a couple of occasions and perceived him as a pleasant, kind individual. While he treated Valerie well, he was overly insistent and struggled to accept her refusal. Javier was not pleased with Valerie's decision to end their relationship and made efforts to win her back. He persistently sent her text messages and seemed to coincidentally encounter her in various places, such as stores or on the street. In September 2018, Javier contacted Valerie, claiming he had mistakenly used her bank card for an online purchase and wished to meet to reimburse her. Valerie responded unfavorably to his explanation. She felt certain Javier was pursuing her, relentlessly trying to get her back, but she had no desire to reconcile with such a persistent ex-partner. She confided in a friend about her former boyfriend and requested assistance in resolving the issue concerning the money and the card. Her friend met with Javier, spoke with him, and requested that he cease contacting Valerie, and Javier seemed to heed her friend's advice. He ceased his pursuit of Valerie, allowing her to finally feel more at ease and secure. Then, on January 24th, 2019, Javier sent a text message to one of his former girlfriends, falsely claiming he had discovered Valerie in his bed with a neighbor. This assertion was patently false, as Valerie would not have been at his residence. They had separated and were no longer in contact. His motive for sending such a message remained obscure, though it was true that Valerie had begun seeing someone else around that time. On January 27, 2019, Valerie attended a holiday gathering with her family, where they enjoyed themselves. The following day, January 28th, after returning home from her job at the store, Valerie telephoned her mother in a state of distress. She cried out that she feared someone intended to harm her. Valerie explained to her mother that she was experiencing anxiety attacks. She felt paranoid and insecure in her own apartment, having heard about recent, disturbing incidents of women being killed in their residences. Valerie harbored a fear that she could also become a victim. Her mother then inquired whom her daughter feared, but Valerie didn't provide a specific answer. The mother comforted her daughter, and they ended their call. Near midnight, Valerie sent a message to her mother, stating she felt considerably better and was heading to bed due to exhaustion. This turned out to be the final communication for Valerie. On the subsequent day, January 29th, Valerie failed to appear for her job. This was entirely out of character for her. Valerie was consistently responsible regarding her work and had never been tardy, let alone absent without notice. Having been employed at the bookstore for approximately 2 years, she genuinely loved her position. It was highly uncharacteristic for her to act this way. Her manager was unable to reach her by phone. Later that evening, Valerie was expected at a family dinner, but also failed to arrive. Her mother grew increasingly anxious, recalling their unsettling conversation from the previous day. Valerie was not answering her phone, despite continuous calls and texts. All attempts to reach her went directly to voicemail. Valerie's family became deeply worried. They circulated her photos on social media platforms and contacted all her friends, seeking any information about her possible whereabouts. However, no one had any knowledge of her location. On the morning of January 30th, her relatives proceeded to the police station to file a missing person report. They expressed their mistrust of her former boyfriend, Javier, and requested that investigators scrutinize him more closely. The police conducted a thorough search of Valerie's apartment for any leads, but found nothing overtly suspicious. There were no indications of a struggle or disorder, although minor bloodstains were discovered on a pillowcase and in the bathroom. These stains didn't initially raise alarm among the police officers. They posited it could have been an accident. Perhaps she had injured herself or experienced a minor bleed, and thus it wasn't given significant attention. The police commenced their search for Valerie and sought information from her mobile service provider. It was discovered that Valerie's phone had been switched to airplane mode during the night of January 28th to 29th, around 3 a.m., and subsequently showed no activity. Furthermore, someone had gained access to her phone's data via iCloud, reviewing her photos, videos, and messages, essentially inspecting the entire contents of her phone. This was extremely suspicious and unsettling. It then came to light that 2 hours later, at 5 a.m. on January 29th, an individual used Valerie's debit card to withdraw $1,000 from her account. Security footage from the ATM captured a man making the withdrawal. He arrived in a black Honda, took out the cash, and departed. Valerie was not observed with him. By examining footage from other surveillance cameras, investigators managed to identify the vehicle's license plate number, revealing that the car had been rented by Valerie's ex-boyfriend, Javier, the same person her family had urged police to investigate. Consequently, Javier emerged as the primary suspect in the case, and the police initiated a focused investigation into his involvement. Detectives secured a warrant to search his residence, but this yielded no immediate clues. However, they did locate surveillance cameras in the vicinity of his home. Footage from these cameras established that at 10:50 p.m. on January 28th, Javier departed from his home driving a black Honda. Throughout the investigation, police discovered that his cell phone had been located near Valerie's residence. Upon checking Valerie's phone records, investigators confirmed she had not contacted him via call or text for a significant period and had not invited him over. So what was his purpose there? How did he end up outside her apartment near midnight without an invitation? Subsequently, Javier switched his phone to airplane mode, rendering it untraceable for that period. At 6:30 a.m., his phone was turned back on, locating him near Harrison, Connecticut. Then, at 7:30 a.m., his phone's location was registered in Greenwich, Connecticut. It wasn't until 9:43 a.m. that he returned to his apartment in Quincy, New York, a fact corroborated by security camera footage. Upon his return, Javier was wearing different attire than when he had left his home earlier and was seen carrying a large sports duffel. A few minutes later, he exited his residence once more, this time without the bag. It also transpired that on the evening prior to Valerie's disappearance, he had posted an old photograph of himself and Valerie together on Instagram. As police continued their investigation, Valerie's family members distributed flyers and actively searched for her, but their efforts yielded no results. Then, on February 5th, a week following her disappearance, a significant development occurred in the case. Highway maintenance workers discovered a red suitcase abandoned by the roadside. Upon opening the suitcase, they promptly contacted the authorities. The suitcase contained the body of a young woman. Her hands and feet were bound, and her mouth was covered with tape. Her shirt was unfastened. She was dressed in jeans but lacked shoes, and she had a severe head injury. On February 6th, the victim was identified as the missing 24-year-old Valerie Eise. Her family confirmed her identity. A pathologist concluded that her death was a homicide. The findings indicated she had been struck on the head with a blunt instrument and then confined alive inside the suitcase, where she ultimately succumbed to asphyxiation, enduring immense suffering. The police were convinced of Javier's culpability, yet their primary evidence against him at that point was his possession of Valerie's bank card. He was subsequently arrested and charged in connection with this. Valerie's bank card and her identification card were discovered in his wallet. During questioning, Javier claimed he had coincidentally found her card and ID at a bar. This explanation seemed highly improbable. Detectives then informed him they were aware of his presence outside Valerie's home on the night in question. At that point, he stated, "Yes, I consumed a significant amount of alcohol that day. It's possible I was there. I don't recall anything." When investigators presented him with the details of what had befallen Valerie, he became emotional. Javier then confessed and began to provide his account. According to his statement, on the evening of January 28th, he visited Valerie's residence at her request, and they engaged in rough, consensual sexual activity. He claimed that during this encounter, she accidentally fell, striking her head on the floor, which resulted in the severe head injury and her losing consciousness. Panicked and unsure of how to proceed, Javier asserted he attempted to provide aid, performing CPR and chest compressions, but to no avail. He refrained from contacting the police, fearing he would be held responsible. Consequently, he devised a plan. He resolved to bind her, seal her mouth with tape, place her into a suitcase, and then dispose of her body in this manner. This raised the question of why he would need to tie her and tape her mouth if, by his account, she was already unresponsive. He also claimed he anticipated the police would be searching for him, so he withdrew money from her card, ostensibly to aid investigators in their search. Subsequently, he made charges on her card totaling $4,350. He discarded Valerie's phone by throwing it from a bridge into a river and meticulously cleaned the rental car, ensuring no evidence was left inside. Additionally, he accessed her iCloud account, examining photos and other stored documents. Javier utilized her thumbprint to check her bank card balance. The police found his narrative unconvincing. He was formally charged with kidnapping resulting in Valerie's death. It later emerged that Javier had not only emptied her bank account, but had also taken her laptop and computer, even photographing these items. When his roommate inquired about the origin of the computer and laptop, Javier claimed he had simply found them while walking down the street. This explanation sounded peculiar, and though his roommate didn't believe him, he chose not to get involved. Javier's DNA was subsequently discovered on the red suitcase and on Valerie's body, specifically under her fingernails and on her chest and genital regions. During the trial, the prosecution posited that Javier had been obsessed with Valerie. The prosecutor presented an alternative sequence of events. According to this version, Javier went to Valerie's residence. The absence of forced entry signs suggested he likely still possessed keys and let himself in. Valerie was presumably asleep and unaware of his presence. Upon entering her bedroom, he allegedly attacked her with the intent to sexually assault her. A struggle ensued, during which he struck her on the head with a blunt object, causing her to lose consciousness. Frightened, Javier then bound her and applied duct tape to her mouth to prevent her from screaming or escaping. He then placed her into a suitcase, removed her from the house, put her in the car, and disposed of the suitcase some distance from her home. On February 5, 2020, during his trial, Javier entered a guilty plea to the charge of kidnapping resulting in death. He expressed remorse and offered an apology to Valerie's family. The defense attorney argued that Javier was experiencing severe depression following his breakup with Valerie. Being far from his home country and allegedly using substances had purportedly impacted his mental state. During the trial, letters from acquaintances in Venezuela were presented, attesting that Javier was fundamentally a good person who had uncharacteristically snapped and made a grave error. Valerie's family, however, found his expressions of remorse unconvincing and did not accept his apology. Valerie's mother described him as a selfish, greedy, and heartless individual. On September 3, 2021, Javier was sentenced to 30 years of imprisonment. It was also revealed that Javier's presence in the U.S. was unlawful. He had entered on May 8, 2017, under the visa waiver program and was obligated to depart by August 5, 2017, but had failed to do so. Consequently, upon completion of his prison sentence, he faces deportation back to Venezuela. If you found this account compelling, I'd appreciate it if you'd give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this story in the comments section. Thanks for tuning in, and goodbye for now.